Hi, everyone who's just joining. Welcome. We'll see a few more folks roll in the next couple of minutes, but it's so great to have you here for our next installment of the Local Line Learning Series, where we have our wonderful guest, Dan Brisebois from the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy. So as a few more people join here, I'm just going to start going through a couple of reminders. As usual, if you've been on any of our webinars before, you'll know that you will be getting a recording after this. So if you miss anything or you want to go back and double check on something, you'll have the chance to do that. So you'll be getting that to your inbox sometime tomorrow. We'll be sending that follow-up email. And hopefully you'll be getting a couple of resources as well. We have a few calculator tools and a few resources that we'd love to pass along to you for signing up for this webinar. And then if Dan has anything extra, we'll also include that in our follow-up email, as well as links to his website and blog. And you'll be able to check that out as well. So if we want to just head to the next slide here while a few more folks roll in. So we went over, you'll be sent the recording, but also point number 2, you can drop your questions into the Q&A. So if you mouse over the bottom of your screen there on Zoom, you can see that there's a little Q&A box. You can go ahead and type your questions in. We will be monitoring them throughout today's presentation. So if anything, doesn't quite make sense, or you want Dan to go back over something, we can see that and we'll be able to pick those out and ask them in the moment, or we'll decide to save them for the end because we will be doing a Q&A towards the end of Dan's presentation. You'll also see that there's a chat box there. I love to start every webinar by just asking everyone who's on the call today to go ahead and kind of drop an intro in the chat there. So who you are, maybe your farm name or your business name, and where you're coming to us from. I am in Kitchener, Ontario today, and it's cold. I will say that it's a chilly day, so I hope there is some nicer weather where you are. Dan, where are you coming to us from today? You just update everybody on the call.
So I'm just outside of Montreal. So we also are going through the first of the colder snaps of the beginning of winter.
Yeah, exactly. Around Montreal, I used to live in that area. Elliott Lake, okay, that would be cold. That's maybe even colder than the both of us. Beautiful though in Elliott Lake, Barbara, that's awesome. And again, feel free to keep dropping your intros in there. It's always nice to connect with each other and just see who else is listening in today. So we will head to the next slide here. So I will be introducing our guest. So this is Dan. Dan's already come on a little bit, and he'll introduce himself a little bit further in the next couple of minutes. But Dan is a self-professed spreadsheet maniac. I think that's your Instagram handle, correct? Or something similar to that.
It is, yeah.
which is so great. We're so glad to have you on today. And this is actually something that Dan does as part of his job is that he helps farmers understand their data, manipulate their data, and understand what spreadsheets and Excel can do for them. So we have a great new feature here at Local Line, our dashboard, our insights dashboard, and it's where you can download all of your insights and your data, and also see some at-a-glance dashboards to give you insight into your business. So we're actually going to be working with that a little bit today. Dan has some examples, and I'll show you how to do that, how to download that info so you can make the best decisions for your business going forward. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Dan. Feel free to introduce yourself, and I'm going to go off video and mute for a bit and leave it to you. I might pop on to ask a couple of questions, but yeah, I'll be here in the background for a little bit.
So good afternoon for those of you in the afternoon, or hello for whatever time zone. I'm Dan, and I'm going to load up my slides. So today I've named my session from online orders to sales plan, and what I want to do is show how much data you have hiding in your Local Line platform, and how much you can use that to do all types of things. And one of the things you can do is start to plan your sales for the next year. And we're only going to go so far in the sales planning, kind of leave you the first step so that you can see how to work with that. So I'm going to start off by introducing myself and then talking a bit about the session, and then we're going to jump in. So I'm Dan Brisebois, and I'm one of the farmers at Tournesol Cooperative Farm. I'm on the far left here. We started in 2004 with 5 co-op members who met studying at McGill University and in agriculture. And then we had worked for different farmers, and then we wanted to start our own farm, and we launched together. And since 2004, now we've grown to 7 co-op members, and it's about 18 or 19 staff that work on the farm, including the co-op members. So we're a big crew. We are in Les Cèdres, Quebec, so that's 45 minutes west of Montreal, assuming there's no traffic. And we grow on, we have 17 acres, but it's about 12 acres tilled. We're growing 6 acres of vegetables, 1 acre of seed crops. And so we began predominantly as market growers, selling to a CSA and to a farmers markets. Over the years, we phased out farmers markets, and now we only do CSA. We have a 500-member CSA at this point. And for a long time, this was the big part of our business, while we had a small part of our business, which was this online seed company. And over the years, the online seed company has grown to, at this point, it's larger than our vegetable business. And so we have an online seed store, and we also we have seed racks in a number of nurseries and health food stores, and across, predominantly in Quebec, but across Canada. And so this is the farming hat that I wear. I also have another hat I call the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy. And this is where I help farmers with their farm systems, predominantly through spreadsheets. And I do spreadsheet coaching and design for farmers, but I also run a online course and to help people do their crop planning and all that kind of setup. And so what we're looking at today is a little bit of some of the things that we might do in this farm course, or in this online course. So I've been running online stores since 2010. That's when we moved our seed catalog from a print catalog or a PDF that people could place orders through email to a physical, a digital online platform where you could order things. And we've seen a lot of different changes over the years. And one of the, online stores have just gotten better and better at ways to place orders and ways to manage orders, but they can only do so much. And that's in part because they're trying to deal with so many different types of businesses who have so many different types of needs. And so they can't be custom to everybody. And this is where spreadsheets come in, is that with spreadsheets, you can go beyond the limits of your online store in terms of understanding your data and figuring out things that you might not know otherwise. And so all you really need is the data. And today we're going to go into local line, and we're going to get that data, and then we're going to look at how you can manipulate it. And the way that I'm going to look at this is what I call the 3 cornerstones of the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy. So the first cornerstone is we want to enter data once into our spreadsheets. And in this case, that data that we're going to enter is what we're taking out of local line through a CSV file. So that's what we're going to do at first. And then we want to refer to data that's already entered. So we want to manipulate that data and get information out of it. And then the third cornerstone is we only want to look at the right data, because you're going to have all kinds of things that you can look at. But now we want to kind of just narrow down so we're not distracted by tons of information. So that's the outline of what we're going to do. And so we'll start off with the first cornerstone, which is to enter data once. And I should say, there's going to be definitely time for questions at the end, but if you have questions as you're going along or clarifications, please drop into the chat box. I don't know that I can monitor it so well, but I think that Katie will give me a heads up if there's something I need to clarify.
Yep, absolutely will. We'll be in the chat and in the Q&A, and I'll feed anything to you if you need it.
Perfect. So the first cornerstone is you want to enter data once. And in different spreadsheets, that means different things, because that could mean if you're doing crop planning, you don't want to keep entering your sales data in each different place. So in this context, what we want to do is we want to bring in the information that we're getting out of local line and have it one place that we're going to work with. And so where to get that information is if you go into your dashboard. So this is a sample dashboard that I have. At the top, there's a section called orders. And if you click on that, it's going to show you all your orders. And then you can click in choose the orders that you want to export or that you want to look at. And it could be all the orders for the year. You also have a lot of filters that you can look at to get those, to narrow down what dates that you might want to be looking at orders. So you can use these different tools and select a bunch of orders, and then it's time to export them. So you can click on download orders in the top. And when you click on that, you're going to get a couple options. And the one that you want to choose for what we're going to do is orders list view. And this is going to bring in all your orders and your items as a CSV file. And it's the easiest way to look at information as a spreadsheet. So that's what you want to get to. And then you click on download. You're going to put it somewhere on your desktop and maybe change the name so it's something that you understand. And now you have your information out of local line, and then it's a matter of bringing it somewhere else. And so what I'm going to be using is Google Sheets. So I'm going to import the CSV into a Google Sheet. And the way that you can do that is open a Google Sheet, and in the top corner in the file option in the menu bar, if you click on that, you'll get a drop down. You're going to go to import. You click on import, and then you'll have different options, and you can choose to go to the upload option. Then you'll select the file from your device. So that's the file that you just downloaded. So remember the name and where you put it. And then it's going to bring that information up, and you'll be able to then go into the import location. There's a few different options, and you want to choose replace data at selected cell. And this is going to just add it to the current sheet that you have opened. I mean, you can use these other options too in your specific context if you want, but what I find the easiest is just to replace the current data there. Or if you're updating the information that was previously there, you could just replace that also. And then you'd click on, import data, and your sheets would have the CSV in. So I'm going to now jump into a spreadsheet. And I've actually put together a URL where you can download it. Let me just type that into the chat box. So spreadsheet.farm/local line. And I see that those two L's side by side look a little bit funny, but local line 21. If you go there, you'll wind up going to a landing page, and you can choose to sign up to my newsletter if you want, but you don't have to. You can just get the spreadsheets and you can look at them. If you do this right now, pay attention to the screen that we're on, because this is where I'm explaining, not in the spreadsheets are going to be manipulating them, but here the screen is where you're going to see that. And then as Katie just texted a chat, I mentioned the chat, they'll also include this in the follow-up email. So this is not your only chance to get that. So I am going to switch screens and hope this works smoothly. So this is the sheet that you're going to get if you go to it. And down here, not down here. So this first tab is called CSV from local line. And so here is all your information. And CSV stands for comma separated variables. It's a type of file that you can import actually into any spreadsheet, into almost any kind of, you can bring it into a Word document or a Google document. It's just a way to store information without formatting. And here, the first thing to do is to familiarize yourself with what you're seeing in this file. And so here is the CSV file that I imported. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze the top row. So I can do that by dragging the little line there. or I could go into view and click on freeze, and I want to see the top row. So this means that the top row stays static and the bottom rows go down. And then I could also freeze a column, and I can go from left to right and see what's there. Now, the next thing is just to kind of go through. So the first column is the order number, and the order number is important. It's everything that's on the same order has the same order number. And what's interesting, well, I don't know if interesting is the right word, but the way it's organized is, we'll look at these 3 rows here. They all have the same order number. So they are the same order. And then we have, so everything of them is the same information. So it's the same client, and I've created some pretend clients. So 100, does it just 100 test client and 101 and so forth. So all of this is going to the same person, the same order. These are the products that were ordered: some carrots, some beets, some asparagus. There's the units that there was ordered in, and then there's the quantities. Some of the dollars might be a little funny. I was updating another sheet and I didn't quite integrate the prices in, but we'll just pretend it's right. And so this is the number of 1 bunch of carrots, 1 bunch of beets, 1 bunch of asparagus. And so that's over here. The next run is related to the price. And then there's if they had an order note. And then over here is where it's being picked up, a delivery or pickup, to what location. And I have a bunch of locations from A to Z. Is the payment overdue? And then there's some customer information too that I've also deleted. So with this, you have all this metadata, I guess, for your order, and you can look at different pieces of information in this. And so this is the first cornerstone, is to have your information available. The second cornerstone is you want to refer to data that's already in this information. It's already in this in the spreadsheet. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. One thing that I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to add a column. Well, I'm going to first highlight a really important piece of information. So there's a couple pieces of information that are really important. There's the maybe I'll put them in red. I won't cross them out. The order number is important, and how you identify things. There's the product that you're giving. Maybe the product ID or the SKU would also be valuable, but the product name is important. Then there's the quantity that's really important, sort of from day to day. And there's also down here is your where is it down here? Yeah, is your pickup. Your delivery pickup date is really important also. Now, all the information actually has some value, but what we're going to look at is these are the information that's pretty interesting. The date is great, but sometimes dates can be tricky to use. So I'm actually going to also add a column on the left here that is, I'm going to call it week number, and I'm going to do a formula which is called week num, and I want it to point towards T2. And so this is the 12th of October is the 42nd week of the year. Week 1 being the week that has January 1st in the year. And I'm going to drag this all the way down. And there's also, so this data set has something else that's a little bit tricky about it, is that if you look at it, there's dates that are 2021. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. There's dates that are 2021 all the way down to 2020, 2018. So if you are working with data over multiple years, you probably also want add another column on the left that you would call year, and I would do equals year, open, that's another formula, open parentheses. I'm gonna choose that same date column, close the parentheses, and that's the year of that this week number is taking place in. So these numbers turn blue whenever there's a formula. If I were to type this in and there's no formula, it's going to just turn red in this case, or if it was black in the background, it turned black. So If you're curious how that happens, there is an extra tab where I have, for more information, there's a couple different things that I've done in the spreadsheet that you can go read more information about. So that's just where that magic is, not where that's coming from, but if you're curious about finding out more about that. So now, if you want to do anything with the spreadsheet, with this data, you can use it like any other spreadsheet. So I'm going to insert another sheet and just show you what that might mean. Actually, what I'm going to start off by just doing is at the top, I'm going to, where is that? Right here is a little funnel. I'm going to click on it. I'm highlighting the whole row and I'm clicking on it. And that, okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to highlight the whole row. I'm going to click on it. Things are going slowly. Okay, I'm going to be patient. Click on it once, be patient. And now these little triangles appear beside the words. And these are filters. And so I could say that, let's say I'm going here and I want to see what orders have something else. So I can click on it. And down here's all the items that are in the order. I could clear it and I want to just see the carrots. There's some bunched carrots. I want to see that. I'll click on that. And this is the orders that have bunched carrots. Now, if you look on the corner, it says 3 through 67. So it's just hidden the rows. They're still there, but you're just seeing some of the information. And you can filter all kinds of things that way. But so I'm going to take this word carrot bunch, and I'm going to insert a new sheet. And I'm just going to put this word here, carrot bunch. And so just an example of how you can refer to the data is I could use the formula SUMIF, and I want to add up. So SUMIF, you're going to add up things that meet certain criteria. So any product name, that's column L, that corresponds to carrots bunch, is going, and I'm going to add up the quantity of it. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to just re-add at the top. I clicked too quick, the second part. And I'm going to the quantity, and I close the parentheses. And what it shows is there's 464 bunches of carrots that have been ordered over the whole time. So if you were to add up all these numbers, and actually if I highlight the whole thing, and in the bottom right, it's hard to see in here, there's a little sum box that says it's 464. So that's, yeah, so it's 464 carrots here. You can do all kinds of formulas this way. And so you can, if any spreadsheet formulas that you can apply on this information, on this data. However, there's one way that's really easy to refer to this information, or maybe I should say really convenient. It's easy once you've learned how to use it. And that's what we're going to look at right now. And that's a pivot table. So I'm going to click on the insert in the menu tab, and I'm going to scroll down to pivot table. And I'm going to create the pivot table in a new sheet. And so that pivot table exists here. And I now want to look at different kinds of information. And so what I want to look at is what we sold this year. And to do that, I can do a couple different things. First, I can, so in the pivot table, there are rows, columns, values. And maybe I'm going to show you another sheet of what we're trying to get. I'm trying to create basically kind of looks like a calendar where you might have your crops on one side, carrots, beets, and so forth. And then on the top, you're going to have different weeks of the year, week 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and then how much you sold each of those. So maybe you sold 25 bunches there, 25, maybe you sold 25 all the time. So this is what the end result is I'm trying to get. So this here in yellow is what's called rows in your pivot table. And so the rows, I'm going to go into the pivot table editor on the right. And here I can choose my rows, my columns, my values, and my filters. And even further on the right is a bunch of words. These words are the same words that are the headers of each of your columns. And so I can pull one of those. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to take the product. Well, let's look right here. So what I'm looking for is I'm going to look at the product name. That's column L, the different products there. So I'm going to go and I'm going to drag product name over to the rows. And now all those products show up right here. And so I can
That is
see
very,
there's,
very cool. I am, just to jump in for a sec, I'm learning some very cool things here. And before we jump into building this pivot table out, I just want to highlight a couple of questions that have come in along the
go for it.
way that we might be able to give a couple of quick answers to. So first one from Michelle, appreciate this. Does the data change colors in Google Docs only? Is there a way to duplicate the color change in Excel? Does anybody know that?
So in terms of the blue, the way I changed the color is that I actually did some conditional formatting. Where's that? They just changed the menus recently. So conditional formatting on the far right. And I created a custom rule that says, if it's equals is formula, it's going to turn blue. You can do this in Excel also. Most spreadsheet programs will let you do that. And so this is something that I did to it. It's not something that's, well, it's potential as Google Sheets, but Google Sheets doesn't give that to you right away.
And it's not necessary either. I don't think if someone doesn't want to do that, it's also fine to just leave it in black.
It is, but I find it nice to know what is a static variable and what's a dynamic variable, especially the more complicated your spreadsheet gets. It's good to see that. And or when you're working with your staff or your team, because you might know where all the formulas are, and then your staff is trying to do something. So they go in and they're like, oh, this number, I don't want it to be that. And they type something else and they break a formula by writing a static number. And then that formula will never update. It's just going to be the number that's there. And so it's a way that you can quickly see where things have changed. And in some cases, if you really want to draw attention to it, so I'll go back to conditional formatting. I could also, sometimes I'll put a green background. I mean, it's a little obnoxious, but you really see what's a formula and what's not. If I go in and I change this and I write carrot, it changes. I mean, not because it's carrot, but because it's not a formula anymore.
Nothing against carrots.
Nothing against carrots. Just not a year.
Oh, that's great. That's great clarity there. Appreciate it. And then Alicia has a question. How do we find these spreadsheet formulas? Like, say if someone wanted to literally just like browse through the possibilities, are there any good resources that you'd recommend?
Well, I guess I'm a good resource. So if you go through my website, you'll find different spreadsheet tips I've recorded over the years. Sometimes for a while on YouTube, and at least I'm interested in more text. And I go through the ones that I think are the most useful. There are not infinite, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of spreadsheet formulas out there. So it depends how much time you have. I think the easiest thing to do, not the easiest, the best thing to do is if there's something that you want to do, figure out how to describe what the problem is, type it into Google, and there are a lot of people out there who are doing fantastic resources of how to use different spreadsheet programs. And so if you wanted to figure out the week numbers, you could write week numbers, Google Sheets, maybe how to into a search engine, and you'll probably find something. Or you could do week numbers, OpenOffice or LibreOffice or Excel, whatever platform that you're using. There's probably somebody who has information. Excel and Google Sheets have tons of references out there. And so if you really like to geek out on that and jump into it, that's where you go and you just start to do things and you'll build up your knowledge. If you're trying to get some shortcuts, I've tried to share a lot of the formulas that I think are the most useful to get the most information. And I'm sharing a few of them here already. But it depends how much time you want to dedicate.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And we have another question here from Jonathan. I see your question. We'll save that one for the end. So we'll answer that one during the Q&A because I think it's a bit of a longer answer.
Okay.
All right.
Well, so I'm going to, what am I going to do? So I'm doing a pivot table. So I've dragged the product name over into the rows section. For the columns, I want them to be the week numbers. So that's this up here in green. I want that to be the week numbers. So if I look in this CSV, the week number this is something that I added in. It's column B. And I think I got rid of my conditional formatting while I was doing that. Anyway, so be it. So I'll go back over here and I'm going to drag week numbers into columns. And now, now you can see all the week numbers that are in that sheet at the top. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to just squeeze them a little bit so that I can see them. There's a few things you could do at this point. You could put a grid on it to easily define what everything is. Yeah. Alternatively, you could also highlight everything downwards, and you could add some alternating colors. You could choose the color that you want, orange, blue. Maybe it's more of a yellow. And so now we have, it's more of a calendar format with each week of the year on top and the products on the side. And now the next thing that we'll do is I want to see the number of bunches or number of items that were sold each week. I'm going to go into here, and it's the quantity that I'm looking at. And so I can go back here and I'm going to take the quantity and I'm going to drag it over to values, and everything shows up here. So I can see that, you know, bok choy was very popular, sold 6, 12, 33, 54. This is not real data. This is data that I made up a bit based on another set of data to have something to work with. I'm also going to freeze these two columns so that I can scroll left to right. So now with this information, I can see my year at a snapshot in a way that's very different than what you might see in different reports. I don't know the full extent of all the reports in Local Line. When I'm working on an online store, I tend to just get the data out and then do the thing that I want it to do. So there may be something that looks similar to this, but this is something that you can now quickly work with. One more thing that you can do is there is on the bottom of the pivot table editor on the right, it says filters, and I can add a filter. And this means, like, if we go back here, we can see that some of this data is 2021, 2020, and so forth. So there's really, okay, I'm going to unfilter the carrot bunch by selecting all. And so the data is only about a quarter of the data is from 2021. Maybe I only want to see that. So I'm going to take the year and I'm going to drag it down to filters. And I could click on this and I can clear all the checked years. And I'm going to check, I want to see 2021. So I click on that and it reduces the products to what was visible then and what was available, what was sold then and what was sold at this point per week. And so now I can see all this information. And with this is where you can begin a sales plan. And that can mean a lot of different things. It could mean, so one thing to realize about a pivot table is that this information is dynamic, which means that if I were to go up here and I'm going to add something on top, I'm just going to add another, I'm going to copy this, I'm going to copy this row down here. And if I go to the product's name and I put one, I'm just going to call it test. And we sold 2,000 of those. Now, when I go to pivot table, there's a test item that has 2,000 on week 42. So this is a dynamic sheet that keeps updating whatever you do in this. In the case, so with a CSV file, you would download a CSV file each time you want to analyze the data, and you'd bring it in, and there you are. If you had a crop planning sheet or some other information that you were changing or updating regularly, then this would update every time that you change another cell. And that's fantastic for staying up to date. What's tricky though is that you can't change anything here. You can't write in these cells, you can't modify this. So but what you can do is you could make another sheet and you can take this information, you could highlight it all. I'm going to copy it, or you could right click and you could copy, and then I'm going to paste it over here. I'm going to do right click and I'm going to do paste special. I only want the values, and it shows up. And I'm going to just reformat it quickly. And we'll throw down some alternating colors. So this is no longer a pivot table. This is just the data that I copy pasted over. And that copy paste special means that you're just copy pasting either the formula, the value, whatever you wish to bring in. And now at this point, so this is a bit of a funny data set to look at. But if I'm going to plan around next year, I can say, well, okay, we had 0.5 pounds of arugula. We sold this amount. I want to make sure that we're growing. It looks like we can sell about 15 a week. I want to make sure that we're growing 15 each week. And then the 2-pound bags, we only sold a couple. Maybe we didn't have them available earlier. We're going to offer them more often. We're going to try to have 2 of those a week. And I can work with that based on the information that I have in this context. And this then becomes the beginning of next year's crop plan. And you can then do projections of what your revenue is going to be. But you could add up the far right here. We could add a column and we could just do equals sum and add up everything here. And yeah, we could drag that down. And actually this is the total number. And in this case, if we had the price also added in here, so maybe we sell the 1/2-pound bags at, I don't know, $5 and the 2-pound bags at $16. We can multiply that by that. And we have a projected income coming in, and we can add that up. Now, I'm doing this on the fly because it depends on what you're looking for. But this information is really easy to plan around now that you have it. So that's what you can do with a pivot table, and even more. So this is the beginning. So I'm going to call this pivot table. I'm just going to go. It's going to be sales per week 2021, and I'm going to copy this pivot, or I'm going to copy this, duplicate the pivot table to make another one, and we'll see other information that we can do with this. So everything's here. Or you know what, let's just start from the beginning to kind of just give another refresher of how we do it. So I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to insert a pivot table, and I'm going to now do a new sheet. And what I might be looking at in this case is I'm going to look at the order numbers. The rows are there, all the orders are down there, and I could look at the, let's just look at this information here. So there's the order total, that's right, column S. So the order total is the total amount of that order. I could drag that over to another row, and one thing I want to do is, it says total. That's because it's adding up anything that I've clicked as a total. I'm going to unclick those so I can see, unclick this, I can see the dollar value of all these orders. I might just put $1 on it. And now what I could do is I could, so let me just look at the information here. If I go and look at what's overdue, was everything overdue? There's one that's unpaid, but we can look at in the filter, we could, is that status? We can look at what has been paid. Those orders are paid. We can look at what's overdue, and we can look at what's unpaid. So these are these 2 orders that are unpaid. And I know that there's features that you can do that within local line, but it's also something that you can do here, and you can make a checklist that you could bring to a point to see if people pay you. You could also put the status in the columns, and now you have those columns there, and then you could drag the order number again into the values. And here, instead of looking at the sum of it, we want to look at the count. Is that right? Oh, that's going to be, well, that, So it's a bit tricky here is that it's counting how many rows there are for 2573. So that's not specifically what you're trying to do. But in this case, you can still see a chart of who's paid and who hasn't paid and where the orders are. So this information is very easy to manipulate. And so going back to the cornerstones, the second cornerstone of the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy would be to use pivot tables or formulas to refer to the information that you've entered once in your system. And then the third cornerstone is to look at only the information that you need to look at. So here, this is a lot of rows to be looking at and a lot of columns, and it's not what you need. But more narrowing down to a visual representation is easier for you to do that. And so you want to create reports, usually with a pivot table, that let you see a snapshot of the information that is relevant to you right now and doesn't show you all the other information that's out there. So I'm going to go back. So I'm wrapping up the spreadsheet part of this, and we can, in the questions, we might come back to it if people have specific things they want to see happen. And I'm going to head back towards my presentation. And so we looked at a first, so the second cornerstone is refer to data that's already there. And we did that with pivot tables. We did that a little bit with, we showed how you do with the sum-if formula. And then the third cornerstone is looking at the right data. So look at the data that's useful. And so that's with a pivot table, just looking at the things that you need right now, not all your data at once. And so now, once you've seen what you can do with a spreadsheet or a CSV file with your data in it, it can change sometimes the way that you might want to name data going into it. Because things will present alphabetically, or the way that you want to refer to it later on. If you want your carrots together, you might want your product names always to have carrot first, as opposed to saying like 2 pounds carrot, 1 bunch carrot. You might want it to have the word carrot in it. So it might change the way that you choose to import your products into your store. And it becomes an important thing to think about how you're going to use the data afterwards when you're importing the data. We haven't looked at in this specific context, but you can also, it's easy to set up a spreadsheet that generates your products that you then import through a CSV file into your online store. And but that'll be for another discussion sometime. So we will have a Q&A period, but before we get there, I just want to say, you want to stay in touch. You can find me on Instagram at Spreadsheet Maniac. My website is spreadsheet.farm. That'll send you to the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy. And this specific Google Sheet, which Katie is going to send also afterwards, is at spreadsheet.farm/localline 2021. Some things that I have coming up is there's a online workshop called Build a Better Crop Plan. I give a couple times a year. I'm actually giving it next week. So that's something that it's a free online workshop. It's actually, you'll recognize a lot of the same approaches that we saw here, except instead of being applied to an online store, I'm applying it to a crop planning system, specifically the crop planning system that was in a book that I wrote with my co-farmer Fred called, what's it called? Or Crop Planning for Organic Vegetable Growers. I should remember the name. So that's something I'm giving next week. So there'll be more pivot tables and kind of looking in a crop plan context. I'd also, as I mentioned, have a course called Farm Spreadsheets for All Seasons, where you start with your financial goals, figure out a farm plan, a sales plan, and a harvest plan, and then make a crop plan. And once you have all that set up, you can then set up your monitoring and tracking system, use those information to upload into your online store, your local line store. And so that's something that the registration is opening in a few weeks again for one of the winter semesters, if you're interested in that. And or you could just stay in touch through social media. So thank you so much for listening to the presentation, and I look forward to hearing all your questions that may or may not already exist.
Thanks so much, Dan. That was awesome. I also again found myself learning a few things there, a few new tips and tricks, and it's also really great for someone like myself. I don't work as a farmer, to really see the back end of what goes into planning and how our tools can help farmers even more in getting there faster. So, love that. And so I'm just going to go into our question bank here and see what we have. And like I said in the chat there, everyone, I will be including all of Dan's contact info and links to his social media, as well as his website and the registration info for that workshop. That'll all go in the follow-up email that you'll be getting tomorrow. So right now we do have one question here, Jonathan's from earlier, that I wanted to toss out there. And in this area, I am no expert. So I want to see if you have any insight on this one, Dan, especially also as it looks like this is a question specifically for Canadian farmers, but how can you use an API public key to link to a particular database, it looks like, and or Statistics Canada data and join it to farm data? Have you ever done that?
I haven't done that. I don't tend to work a lot with the API. I tend to download CSV files or bring in another kind of spreadsheet and use the information that way. So I'm sorry, Jonathan, I don't have the good answer for you there.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I would suggest going to Stats Canada or the database that you mentioned there, and asking them. They may have more information about how that key works. All right. Any other questions that you have, you can feel free to drop in either the chat or in the Q&A box. It was very thorough of a presentation. So like, I don't know if nobody has any specific questions at this point. Where can they reach you again to follow up if maybe they review this and they have questions for you?
So if you could DM me through Instagram, and I guess I should put that sheet back up if people want to see it, or I could also type into the chat box. So on Instagram, I'm at Spreadsheet Maniac. Don't want to put a typo in there. So that's somewhere that you could, it's supposed to be one word, Spreadsheet Maniac. You could find me there. My email is dan@goingtoseed.net. So you could also email me directly, and I'm happy to see that. I do have a Facebook page for the Farmers Spreadsheet Academy. So you could, if you just Google Farmers Spreadsheet Academy, or not Google, if you look in Facebook, Farmers Spreadsheet Academy, you'll find it. So those are places that you could ask questions. One thing I would say at this point is, after you've done this presentation, after you get off, you should go download your online store data and do a pivot table with it. And if you don't have much data there, or you haven't yet set up an online store, if you have harvest data that you've recorded over the year, go in and see when you've harvested different things. And this pivot tables they look very fancy, the results, but they're fairly simple once you've gotten the hang of it. And it can save you hours of work that you might, often what people do in the past would be copy pasting things from one place to another, or creating a series of different formulas to look at information. But here really you saw I dragged in row, I dragged in week number, and I dragged in the quantity, and I had a full display. And so it's possible that in 5 minutes, you can do what might have taken you with other systems 5 hours to do. And so I would recommend that after this presentation, you go find some information and pivot it, and start to see what you can get out of it, because it really will make your spreadsheets more useful to you, and then you can, once that information is more useful, then you can use it to plan things that make your business more profitable, more precise, more efficient, more pleasant.
That's great. I appreciate here, Jonathan from earlier has just reworded his question for us. So how do you link farmer app data from your own data? Example, John Deere smart machines. Any experience in that realm?
So So I don't know about the APIs, but a lot of, like, I know with John Deere, you can download the information as a CSV file, and you can go and look at that information afterwards. So if you, almost everybody will let you download, like QuickBooks will let you download stuff as an Excel an XLX file. Often your bank will let you download stuff as CSV files or Excel files. Any of this information, once it's downloaded, then you can use it any way that you want. In terms of the API, I don't have a lot of experience with using that, so I can't help you specifically. There are a few import range formulas, like import HTML and import. There's a couple others where you can bring in data sets that that exist on public websites. You don't have to have access specifically to look at. But I don't tend to do that as much. I mean, I really, the world that I live in is managing the data that you're collecting yourself on your farm, your sales data, your harvest data, your planting dates, and you don't tend to need to go into the API as much to do that well.
Mm-hmm. And on the note of Stats Canada, again, that information is open access, and you can often download information. For instance, you're saying here from weather data, historical weather data. I believe that you can also download that or send it an open information request to request that data if you want to use it, integrate it with some of your other planning and manipulate that data. Just a side note there, coming from some other experience that I have there. So at this point, if you have any last questions, we'll make this our last call before we wrap up today. In the meantime, we'll get our thank you slide up there. And this is how you can contact us here at Local Line as well. So if you want to reach out and you have any questions about what we do have a free trial that you can start. If you want to kind of poke around and see, for instance, what our Insights dashboard looks like, go ahead, head to our website and start a free trial. It's right at the top there. No commitment, no credit card required. Just go on in, start that. You can start selling on your free trial, no problem. And we'll be there to answer any questions. We'll connect with you through that time and see how it's going. So definitely give that a go. We also have a couple more resources on our website. If you head to site.localline.ca, you can see, or localline.ca, it'll redirect you. You can see across the top on the site that we have a resources section. We have all of our past webinars there, as well as ebooks and guides and templates that you can dig into for your business. So go ahead and check that out as well. Jonathan, I see your last question there. I'll reach out to you specifically if you want to drop your email in the chat. I will. I'll send you some info. And yeah, we really appreciate it today, Dan. This was so informative. We're already getting some feedback in the chat here, just how concise and clear the presentation was. This was so helpful to so many people, I think. And yeah, we're very excited to see what else is out there and what you have in your workshop coming up. So I will send that info to people and they can register for that and really dig into how data can improve your business. So thanks everyone, really appreciate it, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, we will see everyone on the next one. Take care all.